Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to August's classes for the Advisor Ambassador Group. My name is Zach Hewells, and I work in the Communications and Marketing Department here at NAFA National. Very pleased to be joined by John Hansbrough today, who's a member of NAFA California. He's also a past president of NAFA Los Angeles and works on the program side a little bit too as well. He's here to present Learn Exceptional Prospecting Practices. Very happy that all of you are here to join us today. If you have any questions during the program, there's a chat feature in the Zoom window here that you can use to chat me or John at any time. And at the end of the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves and you can ask the questions directly. But without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to John. Welcome.
Great, thank you, appreciate it. Yep, so I hope everyone's doing well today. Looking forward to sharing some time with you today on presentation I've had the opportunity to give a couple times now for NAFA on exceptional prospecting practices as part of the ambassador program. So thank you for joining us today. Quick agenda for what we're going to go over today. I'm going to walk through my background, a little bit of information about our team here at the LBL group, my experience and what I've done with NAFA over time, some prospecting 101, and then a couple different things I want to touch on regarding prospecting before we open it up for some Q&A, okay? So a little background on me. So originally born in San Diego, so grew up there, graduated high school, went to Los Angeles for college. While I was in school in 2011, I interned for a couple of financial advisors who had a dual specialty practice. They both were investment advisors as well as insurance producers. So there I got exposed to things like advanced business planning, estate planning, charitable trust planning was a big part of their practice, and getting to see the interplay between how they used insurance and risk management products with risk-based products like investments and variable annuities, things of that nature. In 2012, when I joined their team full-time, I became insurance licensed, and so I spent a few years there as their assistant before I began producing myself. In 2018, I joined the LBL group. LBL Group has a long background involved with NAFA California. We have multiple NAFA California past presidents in our office, as well as a past NAFA national president in Larry Lambert. So Larry and Debbie founded our group about 45 years ago, and I'm part of the team here now. Outside of the office...
Sorry, real quick, do you have your presentation up right now?
Not showing?
No, you have a share button on the bottom there?
Yeah, I did this last time too, where I thought it automatically shared it.
Oh, there we go.
Got it. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, still up? Yep. Great. So walking through that, the agenda I had put forward, a couple pictures on that background for the professional stuff. On the personal side, here's a couple pictures and things that I get up to on the weekends. So played college football, still involved with both co-ed and men's teams I play on the weekends and weeknights. Girlfriend plays with me on a few teams, and we're also pretty active. So, just fun stuff, staying outside, getting outside, spending time with people. It's been a fun thing, especially in cities like Los Angeles, where we'll have a huge city and all these people who live here. But you don't always necessarily have a way of getting to know people. So sports has been a good way for me to build out a network personally and in some ways professionally. I've actually made some clients out of people that I play sports with and against. But really just an opportunity to have a little community to spend time with. Part of my why I'll get into is my dad. So that's my dad posing a little staged picture he set up when he was younger. My dad was a physician. He was a surgeon. He moved out to San Diego back in the 80s with my mom from Denver. And he's really my why for why I got involved in this industry. He was really professionally focused, really cared for the people that he took care of in his practice as a burn surgeon, but unfortunately wasn't able to get a lot of the care that he needed himself. And so he unfortunately died by suicide in 2001. And so in the aftermath of that, Dad had insurance, parents had done estate planning, All these things were in place that allowed us to be okay through that process, and to be with our grief and not have to necessarily worry about things like finances and how we're going to pay the next month's bills and all those kinds of things. And so his model of both the care he had for his patients, right, the people that he was involved with, his insistence on giving back to the community, and his professional community. He was involved with the American Burn Association, things of that nature. And then what he did for our family was really a big inspiration for me. And so working with what we do with our, clients and our process that we're talking to every day, I'm talking to them from personal experience, right? My mom figuring out, how she was going to handle mortgage payments and stuff like that with the insurance, sitting down with her financial advisor, mapping out cash flow, paying for college tuition, sitting down with her estate planning attorney, reviewing trust documents and all those kinds of things. Those are things our family went through that I then take and expose my clients to every time I'm meeting with them and talking about this stuff. It's not esoteric. It's not up in the air. It's real life stuff that you need to have in place, and I have a story for why that is. So I bring that with me to a lot of the client meetings that I go to. I'll move in a little bit of the background on the LBL group and who I work with. So the LBL group, a few years ago, our founders merged with Acrisure, which is a nationwide collection of agencies. At this point now, we have more like 210, 220 agency partners throughout the country. Within our office, right, we're like 15 to 20 employees, but we operate independently. We maintain our own P&L, and we're doing all our own client management. It's just that we have a larger network of agencies that we work with, and we get to leverage in different ways with carriers and vendors like advanced education kind of things. But Acrisure, when you roll us all together, we have about $2 billion of revenue, and we're one of the top 10 insurance brokers in the world. My background was NAPA, Los Angeles, so I got involved, my sales manager, I guess, when I was first starting out, she came to me and said, hey, we need someone on the board. Do you want to be YAT chair? And I said, sure, I don't know anything about this. Why not? Let's get me on YAT chair. And within a couple of months, our treasurer stepped down, and so being the someone on the board who they just wanted to throw into the fire, I guess, they made me NAPA LA treasurer. So that was in 2015. And then I did that for a few years. Then I went through the presidential ranks. So from that, I was president-elect a couple of years ago. I just finished up my term as president as of July 1st, and now I'm immediate past president for NAPA Los Angeles. And in 2018, I went through the Life in Leadership Institute program. That's a specialized NAPA program, and it's probably the best-known NAPA program that exists out there. It's a really intensive program, completed over 6 months with a small cohort of people and some moderators. And the moderators take you through readings, through movies, through long class discussions on different topics around leadership, community involvement, professional practices, and just identifying kind of and building out really your whole person. So who you are professionally, who you are personally, who you are within your community, and what you do with your industry. And that's where NAPA comes in, is giving back to the industry itself, because a lot of the benefits that we have in our industry, they're fought for by a small handful of people, and we really need to recognize that. So for me, today's presentation, we're going to really focus on prospecting. So basically, my belief on it is always that results obscure the work. So the tip of the iceberg that people always see is things like success, commissions, trips, different kinds of awards, right? You go into any experienced producer's office and they've got their, glass awards, and it says, they were MDRT this year and they were President's Club that year and all those kinds of things. But they don't have a plaque up on the wall that shows their hard work, all the rejection that they've gotten, all the calls that they've dialed, and all the personal self-doubt that they've had, both personally and professionally over the years, right? Those are the things that don't show up, and those are good to remember, that that's just a reality, though, of our business, and it's better to embrace those kinds of things than feel like you shouldn't be having them. So based on my football background, I love sports analogies. I'm big on focusing on the blocking and tackling. So for me, the blocking and tackling of prospecting in our business is a few different things. Do the work. What's the work you got to do? Do it. Don't just talk about it. Don't map it out. Don't continuously think about what you should be doing, but do it. Focus on learning. Learn. So what is it out there that's going to make you better than the person down the street next to you who's also going to that prospect meeting, right? A lot of times we're getting, especially as you get up market, you're going to be competing with people. It's not just the first time someone's hearing something. So how are you going to differentiate yourself? It's usually going to be service and the skills and strategies that you've been able to learn over the years. stay up to date. Your clients want to know that you're aware of things that are happening in the industry. So if someone else is sitting down with a prospect and they know more about the current climate of what's affecting your industry, what's affecting your products, what's affecting your markets, you're not going to win that case. You got to be up to date on things. And having a process, so something that's repeatable, something that you're taking people through, because it's exhausting for you if you have a completely bespoke, you're just going to customize this sales process for this one client every single time that you're talking to a prospect. And then finally, having a toolbox. So again, doing the work. For me, that was being involved with NAFA. From a learning standpoint, I think, again, going back to the stuff that we talked about with Lily, it covers a couple different things. Obviously, there's industry learning, so knowing your products, knowing your markets, right? Being able to say someone who's interested in disability insurance, well, principles may be at play here, standards at play here, guardians at play there. You definitely need to know those things. But from a bigger sense, personal and professional growth is something that's really important that you'll just see time and time again with the top producers in our industry. So people are reading things like 7 Habits, Good to Great, Mastery, Obstacle Away. All these kinds of books are going to pop up time and time again. These are a few of my favorites, and so that's why I listed them here. For the Lily program, you actually really make a process out of studying 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and Good to Great. For me personally, I've also gotten a lot out of authors and topics such as Malcolm Gladwell. Some of his books, including Outliers, was huge for me. Ryan Holiday is my favorite author out there, and a lot of my reading I get from him and the lists that he puts out. His book, Obstacles the Way, it just went viral basically through like NFL locker rooms. And his whole thing is focusing on how the obstacles in front of you typically are the biggest opportunities you have. So less so work around obstacles and frustrations, and more realize that you're probably not that special, and a lot of other people that you're competing with are facing the same obstacles. So the opportunity is to break through that obstacle when other people are trying to work around it. And through that, you're really going to create your own blue ocean. Robert Greene, in his book Mastery, I just finished up a couple months ago, and that was awesome. His book is entirely about how you're going to become the best you can be by focusing on what gives you personal fulfillment and solves some kind of purpose for you, and then what also ties into what you can be the best at. And it's interesting how a lot of these books, they seem to identify a lot of essential truths that show up in multiple different books, right? There's not some secret sauce here. Good to Great, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Mastery, they're all just using different words and lipstick to discuss the same topics, which is have some kind of purpose you care about. Do something that you're going to be really good at. Have a way that you're going to be able to monetize that effort. If you can add those 3 things together, if you can find that center of a 3-way Venn diagram, and you're going to be really successful. And then I think that principle also is going to cross over to what we're doing in the prospecting world. And then finally, I think biographies are something you should always be spending time with. So for me, this 3-part Theodore Roosevelt biography was awesome. I'm reading one right now on Leonardo da Vinci that's really entertaining. It's a good way just to learn about people who are really potentially different from you and get some history in the process and just learn how they developed. I always think it's interesting that everyone develops in some particular way based on just the experiences they have in life. And so that's a fun way also to grow, because you'll recognize some trends and opportunities within your own life by seeing how things played out for other famous people who were able to accomplish certain things. Staying up to date, so pay attention to things like NAFA GovTalk, right? So for us in California, there's a big issue going on with how independent contractors are currently being classified. And so that's something that by being really on the front lines of that conversation in Sacramento, through the NAFA advocacy days that we've had, as well as the updates that we're receiving from NAFA and our lobbyists, that's a conversation we get to have with our clients. And for me, being in the benefits space, I need to be able to understand these things to be able to transmit that to our clients. They maybe aren't necessarily getting this information. And so being a reservoir updates on where things are at with different legislation and how employment laws are getting changed, that makes you indispensable to clients. From an industry standpoint, again, know your markets, know your carriers, know what trends are going on there, right? Like if you're selling life insurance and you're not looking at the trends and saying, well, this is weird. Why is it that, index universal life sales have been really popping and whole life sales have been declining in recent years, right? Just looking at linear numbers, why is that happening? What do you need to know about that? What are some pitfalls and issues potentially there with those trends? What do you need to know about them? prospect news. This is a big one that I think always is undervalued. You got to know your prospect's business almost as well as they do, right? Obviously, they're in it. They're going to know some things that you're just not going to know. They've got their secret sauce. But if I'm sitting down with someone, I got to know what's going on with them on a day-to-day basis so that I can really tailor my conversation to them, right? I'll tell you a story about that. I just won for a benefits case a large professional investment firm. They're managing, institutional money. So they're managing over $100 billion a year. And to win that case, we were up in competition with a really large benefits house who went in and had a conversation and just said, hey, we're already doing your workers' comp. We're a large national name, and you should work with us because we're great. And our approach was different. We went in and said, hey, we don't presume that we're going to win this. We think that we want to find out more about you, understand what's going on with you, what's special about you, what's going on with your business, and then how we're going to be able to tailor what we're doing for you to what you really need. And so knowing their business was a big part of that conversation, right? Understanding how personnel move and what personnel are demanding in their industry was critical. Understanding some of the considerations that they have, understanding how their finances are working. All those things played a part in winning that case. And that made a huge difference. I mean, they really said it wasn't even that close of a conversation when they made the decision. And so I just think it's critical that you've got to know someone's business as well as they do. Otherwise, you're just not giving the best care to them. You're not doing the best work for them. And then they're just not going to have the best experience possible. At the end of the day, for us, what we're trying to do for people is have an impact for them. And so if you don't know how you can help someone based on what their business is, you shouldn't be having that conversation with them. Being process-driven is an important one too. So being process-driven means, what do you do? So not just saying, I sell life insurance, I sell disability insurance, I sell voluntary benefits, I do long-term care planning. But what is it that you're doing? What is the result for your clients? And then based on that, what is the process that your clients typically experience? Obviously, it's going to be different from client to client, right? What I'm doing for the executive team at a law firm with 20 employees is different than what I'm doing for a 250 employee group. Different stuff for sure, but having a process for what their experience is so they feel the same things, right? You're trying to manage client expectations, prospect expectations, prospect emotions, all those things are being managed. And if you have a repeatable process, that's going to make them feel like they're really more slipping on a glove than having, say like a dentist just going in and chipping at teeth, right? You want to feel like it's a smooth transition and process. And then once you have that process, how do you repeat it on a regular basis? So that's going to be effective for you in a couple different ways. It's going to result in less time that you have to spend thinking about what you have to do. And it's just like sports, right? If you have a sports background, the less thinking you do, the faster you're going to be, right? So for me, when I'm playing football on the weekends, if I'm seeing a certain play happening, I know what's happening and I can jump on it really fast. I don't have to spend time there thinking. The more time you spend thinking, the less quick you're going to be able to move. From a toolbox standpoint, this is where I'm saying know your stuff. So if you are going to talk to someone about charitable lead planning, charitable trust planning, all those kinds of things, you got to know your stuff. If you're talking about qualified plans, you got to understand discrimination rules, funding options, how companies are considering their contribution strategies, all those things. You need to know your stuff. So make sure that as you're learning, you're building out a tool set that you'll be able to use when you are talking to your prospects and clients. What are you known for? So for me, when I'm in networking groups and stuff like that, trying to be really consistent with what I talk about and the values and goals that I'm espousing. So again, if someone knows you as the life insurance guy in a group, probably you're doing a bad job of that. I'd rather people know that I'm there as a employee advocate. Yes, they know that I may be a benefits advisor, like an employee and executive benefits advisor, but I want them to know that, I'm focused on small to mid, market companies and taking care of them, trying to lower their costs and improving client care, as opposed to selling Anthem Blue Cross, right? That's a different kind of thing. And then finally, this all really boils down to people, strategies, and stories over products. So again, don't go out there saying, hey, I've got just the best, lineup of annuities in the world. Saying, I've got stories that can talk to you about the values of guaranteed income and retirement and what that's going to do for you and your family, right? Stories about, well, I was able to increase, this retiree's income by 10% a month and guarantee that for the rest of their life, removing a lot of concern over whether they were going to outlive their money or not, and having some story to talk about that. So is that some grandparent who's getting to go visit their grandchildren twice a year now because you were able to have an impact on them? I don't want to hear about guarantees and products and all that kind of stuff. I want to hear about what is the effect of what you do on someone in the real world, right? Because at the end of the day, our clients don't give a crap about, the deductibles on their plan, the premiums, how the cash value is getting calculated year to year. They want to know that they're getting what they want, right? And if that's tax-free income in retirement, that's what they want to know about. Talk about that. So from a prospecting standpoint, the three things I think you should focus on are who, how, and why. So if you're in the business-to-business market like I am, what business problem do you solve? For me, is it increasing renewals every single year? Is it a lack of control and transparency over costs of care? If you're in the personal space, what personal problems are you solving? Again, is it loss of a breadwinner and effect on a family? Is it lack of appropriate estate plan in place for a business owner or for a family with special needs, right? Those problems, that's where you're going to be able to solve something for someone. If someone doesn't think they have a problem, you aren't going to be able to help them. So that's the first one. What problem are you solving? Who's struggling with it? So do you have some kind of client profile? So again, for me, small to middle market companies. From certain COIs, I'll take small referrals, but really I want to look at companies that are 20 employees up to mid-hundreds and have a profile that that's who I'm working with. It's companies in Southern California who are here based. That's who I'm working with. Again, if you're just going to talk to anyone who fogs a mirror, it's going to be really hard to establish a repeatable process for bringing people into your business, and that's going to make it really difficult. Excuse me. How are you going to reach them? So again, what is the repeatable process for you getting in front of someone? If it's that your mom or dad just referred you one of their friends, that's great, but how many of those are you really going to be able to expect on a year-to-year basis, on a month-to-month or quarterly basis, right? I usually track my business on a quarterly basis because it's helpful for the way our business works. And if I'm just getting one-off referrals here and there, I can't expect anything on that, right? That's hard to plan for. And that's just not an effective way that most businesses run. And you should think of yourself as a business. And then from a why standpoint, why you? Why is it that you're someone who's going to stand out? What is it about you that's going to lead this prospect to say, okay, I have a problem. I know that there's solutions out there to fix it. Why though am I going to meet with this one person, right? What is John doing to incentivize me to talk to him? What is it about him that's appealing that makes me think he's the person to solve that problem for me? So some of the tools that I use to find people and to identify people who fit that target client profile with potentially those problems, things like MyEdge. MyEdge is helpful for the business-to-business sale, whether you're looking at a 401k or health and welfare plans. LinkedIn Premium, something I think every advisor should have if you are really trying to be serious about your career. Twitter, I actually use it to follow some clients, so I'm aware of what's going on with them. It's a good way to just track industry updates and what's going on with prospects and clients. Instagram, again, if you have connections and clients there, maybe on a personal basis, or you're seeing changes. I've had a couple of friends who just had babies, and so, that sparks a concept in my head, or out of my head, which is, I wonder if they have life insurance. I wonder if anyone's talking to them about that stuff. Maybe when I'm at softball, I need to talk to Charlie and see if he's interested in having this conversation. Reference USA is another thing. This is a free resource, usually available through your local library. It's a business listing, and again, from a client profile, you can really narrow it down, and you can draw a map in a certain area and say, I want to find companies who have 50 to 250 employees. They've got a certain business code, and I can just show them right here on this list with contact information. That's a crazy resource, and people don't even know it exists. So really try to be good about and diligent about finding some kind of process for establishing who the potential leads are in your business. I'm going to spend a little bit of time here on LinkedIn. Every time I've talked at these presentations, this has always been the best reviewed part of it. So for LinkedIn, having that premier subscription is critical because you're able to use advanced search and get really into the weeds with it. So again, going back to what we talked about, who, how, why. In this case, we want to figure out where, who, and why we're talking to people. So for me, as you'll see here, I went and I picked second-degree selections, so people who I had some kind of mutual connection with, someone who went to the same undergraduate college I went to, and I just ran a search there. So in this case, it's a little hard to see because it's small, but I ran CFO here as the keyword search within the parameter of who is someone I already have a connection with, or I share a connection with, right? That's a second-degree connection. And then someone that I have some kind of natural affinity to talk to them about, right? So if I'm reaching out to someone Am I just saying, hey, it looks like you could use my services? Or am I saying, hey, I saw you're an Oxy alum. I work with a few already. It's always fun just to connect with someone anyways. Let's use that to start a conversation. You'd be really surprised that I use that lead in a lot, and then we almost never actually talk about our school. It's not like you really have to have something that is just dear and near to someone's heart. So again, that's the one way. So that's finding a list of people. I would say two here is where you can see I've sent a connection to this guy. I've been trying to get a hold of this guy for a while now, and one way of doing that is saying, hey, okay, Russell, right? Here, I'm going to send you a connection. I'm going to tailor it. I'm going to say, Russell, fellow Oxy alumni here, work with companies similar to, Palisades Media Group, right? You always want to include a couple personalizations there in a connection request to get a high degree of responses to it. Saw Jeff Bogert, really good guy. I'm splitting Chargers season tickets with him. Love to connect with you sometime and see what's going on with Palisades Media Group and share with you how I might be able to help, right? Blank. Send that out. Hopefully a response comes back. Every time I do this, I typically get a response rate of like 25%, and then you have an opportunity to follow up with those people. And it's putting you in a really warm position with them, and you're not catching them off guard, right? I think we've all had that where you call that ideal prospect, and it's just a weird time for them, and they're just suddenly in a bad mood, and that's just such a bad foot that it's such a wrong foot that you want to avoid getting off on with them, right? I was kind of thinking about there was a study out there on judges who were doing they were in the appeals process, right, for inmates, and they found that their whatever the term would be, the rate of granting appeals or denying them, it fluctuated so heavily throughout the day. And typically is what happened. It was really a higher appeals granted rate early in the day. And then as a judge, you got closer to lunchtime, so you got tired, got cranky, got hungry. They almost gave nobody appeals, right? They just wanted to bang, 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 get through to lunch. And then once they got back from lunch, then again, appeals rates rise. So you just kind of want to think about some of that weird behavioral psychology stuff that's affecting how people make decisions. Think about that as how you're prospecting, right? Incorporating that. Another way that I use advanced LinkedIn searches is that if you're going down and sitting down with someone that you know kind of well and you feel comfortable enough doing this, I would say put together a referral list. So again, when I first came into the industry, you learn referral language. So hi, this has been a really great conversation. If you found value in what I do, I'd love to share that with people that you know as well. Who do you think might be a good contact for me? We've all had that before where you run through that language. It works great in, the sales manager's office, but then you actually sit down with someone and they go, I don't know anybody. Obviously they know people, right? Everyone knows a ton of different people. So really the way that I like to use LinkedIn here is that if I'm going to go sit down in a meeting, let's say I'm meeting with Emily Cabbage, right, NAPA person, and I'm going, I really need to meet more people in NAPA. What I'm going to do, I'm going to set a second connection list here. So I'm going to get a bunch of second connections. Then I'm going to say, well, Tom Michael, Managing Director of Michael Financial Group. Maybe that's someone I want to talk to. Diane Boyle, someone who works at NAPA. Maybe that's someone else I want to talk to. Again, I can reach out and have some reason for including their name on a list. And I can just put that list in front of my client or prospect I'm meeting with and say, hey, I saw these 5 people, potentially with some kind of affinity connection, or not. Maybe they're all just CFOs that someone's connected to. I saw these 5 people. I'd love to just have a chance to connect with them. Would it be okay if when I reach out to them, I mention that we know each other, right? A couple different things there you're doing psychologically. If you're asking for permission to talk to them, that's different than saying, I'm going to reach out to them. Is it okay if I just mention your name? You'd be surprised. People just say, sure, mention my name. But if you ask for permission, that's where people can sometimes get a little funny about it. And so you want to be really conscious with your language and how you are asking people about their connections. So I saw this person. I saw Michelle. I was interested in reaching out to her. When I do, is it okay if I mention your name? Again, that's going to be just gold for you. So utilize second connection requests or second connection searches for referral language and for referral lists before you go to in-person meetings with people. That's great. Lists, again, articulating your ideal client, who, where, why. So MyEdge, this is a tool that we'll use on the employee benefit side, and that client that I mentioned earlier, 250 employees that I just won, honestly found them through MyEdge, and you'd be surprised at that. So what you can do here, you can do an advanced search. Let's see if we have it up there. We don't. You can do an advanced search, and you can drop in everything. You can drop in potential zip codes, you can drop in cities, you can drop in if someone's a fully insured or self-funded plan, if you actually really know what you're looking for here, employee counts, if they have certain plans or not. You can search by broker. So let's just say you really know someone is kind of struggling and there's some business issues going on somewhere. You can identify other clients of that broker. If you have a really good CPA relationship, you can run a list of all your CPA's clients who are in this market. So anyway here is you want to identify who you're trying to talk to, where they're at, and then some potential pain point for when you reach out to them. So if the client I reached out to, we could just tell they were being overcharged by their current broker. I also had a personal connection to the director of HR, and so I used those two pieces of information I reached out to her to earn us an initial meeting. And it was really casual, and one thing led to another, and it took a while, but we were able to win that account. And it's all because I just did a little bit of that upfront research. So lists are also going to be your friend, especially in today's day and age where there's so much information out there and available nowadays. There's no excuse not to take advantage of it. So in summary, like we talked about, the blocking and tackling, be relentless with what you need to do to be successful. Recognize that there's unlimited opportunities out there for us, especially for a younger advisor who can identify how to use the technology resources that exist to help us earn market share, right? Really, quite honestly, a lot of the older brokers that I know, they're not using these things to any degree at all. And if they are, they're not using them to the degree that they can use them to be successful. It's an opportunity for us that if your competition is not doing something that has a lot of value, you have to take advantage of that. And then finally, know your who, know your how, and know your why. So who are you talking to? How can you help them? And how are you going to get a hold of them? And then why should they be working with you? So that's what I've got for you today. I think we can open it up now in case there's questions. But thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, John. And as he said, if anybody has any questions for him, then feel free to unmute yourselves or ask them in the chat box. And great stuff as always, John. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Looks like
let's see, I'm seeing a couple things in the chat box. Just thanks. Cool. All right, Zach, looking like no questions coming in. So, but I put my information up there, so if someone wants to reach out, they can do that directly.
all right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. If you came in a little late or you wanted a copy of this recording, feel free to reach out to us at recruitment@nafa.org. You'll also get an email sometime early next week that will include the recording from today's presentation. And if there's anything else that you need from me or John, feel free to reach out to us. So thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their week.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Take care.